Let's define mental illness.
Can we not function in some form of our life, whether it be school, work, friends, family, just to let your child know that nothing's wrong with them?
Hey everyone, I'm Mindy with Millennial Moms, and today I have a special guest with us, Kati.
Hi, my name is Kati Morton. I'm a licensed therapist, and I have a mental health channel on YouTube where I talk about all things mental health.
Which is so cool, because I think that you don't really get that a lot on YouTube, like that kind of information.
No.
So it's super awesome. Be sure to check out all of her links in the description box below. You can find her channel and see some of her awesome videos. But today I wanted to touch base, since this is Millennial Moms, we're talking about kind of like millennials and parenting. Wanted to first, let's define mental illness.
Okay, so mental illness, in truth, if it's going to be, I always categorize it by is it diagnosable or not, and that would be if it's a mental illness. And we say things are mental illnesses when they are impeding or stopping our ability to live our everyday life. Can we not function in some form of our life, whether it be school, work, friends, family, whatever, then you could definitely characterize it.
So definitely like anxiety, depression, things like eating disorders.
Yep.
But what about, like, I've always wondered, like, ADHD? Is that considered technically a mental illness?
It technically is, because, at least in the States, it's in the DSM, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. Without getting too, like clinical on you, there's a certain amount of characteristics, and they literally can't function at school or work.
Right. So my next question, I guess, would be, like, as a parent, like, is there a magic age that you start seeing mental illness come on, or does it depend on the mental illness?
It depends on the mental illness, but usually around puberty. Okay. And so that's going to vary child to child, but it's usually around the age when we start seeing things. But you can think of it, even you can consider like the autism spectrum.
Yeah.
They could be much younger. So I always tell parents, if there's something that your child is having trouble with, or like a milestone they're not hitting that your other children or other kids at school are hitting, then that's the point where you need to reach out and talk to another professional, a school counselor, and talk to your child. Find out how they're feeling.
So a lot of you guys know that my son Daxton has been diagnosed with ADHD. When we noticed, I think he was fairly young, like he was only like 2, and we could see that he wasn't hitting some of the same milestones that our other children had hit at the same age. And so we started bringing in like some OT and some PT and some speech to try to get him some help, but he really wasn't officially diagnosed until he was 5, which is still fairly young. But with him, I mean, it really was impeding. Listen, I got story after story about him being in kindergarten and getting pulled out of class like 30 times because he literally could not function in class correctly. Like his behaviors were just bad because his brain was telling him, sending all kinds of crazy messages to his poor body. And so it was really hard for him.
And ADHD and any kind of diagnosed in childhood type disorder, usually if it's not speech related, it happens in school, because that's when we have to interact with others, or if you have them in like different Jamboree classes and stuff. But when we have to interact with other children, we have to sit when they tell us to, we have to pay attention, we have to listen to directions. Things will start to come out, and they will start to, kind of expose the symptoms of whatever they're struggling with.
So that's the point where you would then say, like, if they're noticing those things happening over and over and over, that they should maybe like look for a diagnosis or go see a professional.
Yeah, just to let your child know that nothing's wrong with them and that it can be helped. And for you, the parent, it can be really difficult on both ends.
It's very difficult.
And I always encourage my parents who have a child that I'm seeing to see someone themselves, because it's hard. And I think one of the hardest things for parents is often to admit that something is wrong with their child, because we want the best for them. We want more for them. We want everything to be easy breezy. And so when we come into contact with something that's not as easy and not perfect, we can have our own issues with that.
Yeah.
And so usually having both is the best.
Our counselor did the same thing. Like, he actually insisted that Sean and I go and have some like counseling about how to deal with Daxton, because there's literally like training on how to deal with a kid like that.
Yeah.
So, and it was good. It was good for us to go and hear that, and to recognize that, some of the things we were seeing and hearing like with Daxton were kind of normal.
Yeah, and it makes you feel better. Because, and I think that's the same for the children too, is like understanding that nothing's wrong with you, it'll be okay. We're just getting you some extra support, because the way your brain works is different from other people, and we're trying to figure out how to best
help you to compensate for that.
Exactly.
Yeah. But like, if you were a family that had a child that didn't experience any mental health issues, like, how do you prepare them to like interact with children that they might meet at school? Like, when do you start talking about that?
I'd say honestly that you can never go too young. I know that sounds like really extreme, but the truth is that children, like whenever I've spoken with children who are, let's say 7, 8, even 6, they have no judgment. So So like, oh, I had a kid in my class once that they'd fall down and shake, like had epilepsy or seizures. They won't know what it's called, but they don't have any judgment about it. They're like, oh, the teacher told us to be quiet and be kind.
Interesting.
And there's no, whereas we get older, we think, oh, they're weird, or people are bullies, and we see things happen. And at a younger age, we don't really have that. And so I don't think there's really too young of an age to talk to them about it. I think honestly, especially if they have someone in their class, you could talk to them about it, or if they even have questions, or if they see a homeless person rambling on the street, you can talk to them about that. I don't think it's a scary thing to bring up with children.
It would have been very helpful for parents to have had conversations like that when Daxton came into their classroom, because I think kids would have been more forgiving, and they were. Like, Daxton's had a really positive experience with school, but I do think that there are a few children that he just doesn't mesh well with, and they're maybe the ones that just don't understand what Daxton's limitations are, or his like what he needs extra help with. Yeah. And so they just don't tolerate it as well. So I think those conversations are really healthy.
Yeah, and it helps everybody. It helps the teacher, it helps the children, and it also just helps us all better understand as we get older what mental illness and mental health can look like, and how it doesn't mean that we're crazy. It doesn't mean something's broken. It just means sometimes it takes a different tool to get us to do the same thing.
Which I love. I know, like, I've used this example before with Dax, because sometimes, like, even my own parents, when Dax was first diagnosed and put on medication, they were like, so will he eventually not need the medication? You know, like, will he outgrow it? And I know that sometimes some kids do, like when they hit puberty, but I really think with Dax, because this is kind of extreme, that he probably won't. Yeah. And it was like kind of a learning thing for my parents to explain to them, like, would you tell a diabetic that they need to just outgrow their insulin? You know, like, but sometimes I think people don't think about mental health being the same as like a physical issue.
Yeah, even though it really should be treated that way. That's it's like, would you tell someone with a broken leg to keep walking on it?
Yeah.
No, but we tell children and people with anxiety or depression to just
get over it.
Yeah. Well, just get outside more.
Yeah.
Just
think
exercise.
positive thoughts.
Yeah. And like, that's not how it works.
Yeah. You're like, that's not how it works.
My leg is still broken.
Yeah. So I think that's really a good point to just be like, you know, unfortunately, for some reason, their bodies aren't behaving correctly, and this is how we fix that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. And I think medication comes with its own stigma.
Yes, it does.
Because people think, oh, you're dependent on the medication, and, you know, they overprescribe for kids these days, and all the things we hear. But the truth of it is, if your child is having a hard time and they're struggling to function, if there's something you can do to help with that, help with that.
And I think, you know, like, look, having been a mom, I was as freaked out about the meds and stuff. Like, I was concerned about those things too. Like, so we did kind of like the blind test. Like, we did not tell Daxton's teachers that we were putting him on the meds. We just decided to do it. And then if they noticed a difference, we would know they were helping, you know?
Perfect.
And it was like immediately, like within 2 days, his teacher called us and said, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Because it's like a totally different child. Like, it's night and day difference. And we were like, hey, you want to know what we were doing? We put him on medication. Yeah. And it's helping him. Like, it's now sending the correct signals with his brain.
Yeah.
You know, and she was like,
probably better about himself.
Wait. I can tell just by the way he walks and moves his body. Like, there literally is a difference. Like, it's hard to explain, but the way he talks, the way he moves his body when he's not on his meds versus his meds, completely different. So it's really interesting to see how much that has helped him. Yeah. But I know all kids are different, so I'm not saying you should all do that.
No, but talk to your providers, get all the information, and make the decision that's best for you and your family.
Yeah, I think that's great. Thanks for hanging out with us, you guys. And if you want to check out Katie's channel, be sure to click this button right here and go subscribe. You can find some of our other Millennial Moms videos by clicking right here. And you can find some of Katie's awesome videos by clicking right here. You will enjoy them thoroughly. We'll see you guys later. Bye, guys.
Bye.